fated road leading to Hollow Creek was a cruel joke. It snaked through a dense, ancient forest, sunlight struggling to pierce the gnarled branches overhead. The asphalt, once proud and smooth, was now a cracked and crumbling path, mirroring the village it led to. Sarah, gripping the steering wheel of her beat-up Subaru, felt a tremor of unease snake down her spine. Her grandmother, a woman whose stories had instilled a love for folklore in Sarah, had spoken of Hollow Creek in hushed tones. It was a village swallowed by misfortune, its once vibrant life extinguished by a tragedy shrouded in mystery. Now, decades later, Sarah, fueled by a curious spirit and a yearning to connect with her roots, found herself hurtling towards the forgotten place. The dilapidated village emerged from the woods like a spectral apparition. Houses, once painted in vibrant hues, now wore a coat of peeling gray. Windows gaped like empty eyes, boarded up or shattered. An unsettling silence hung in the air, broken only by the rustle of unseen creatures in the overgrown gardens. The village square, a once lively hub, was a desolate wasteland. A rusty weather vane creaked atop the skeletal frame of the general store, its empty shelves a testament to a bygone era. A lone, gnarled oak stood in the center, its branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. Sarah parked near the oak, the engine sputtering to a reluctant stop. Stepping out of the car, the silence pressed down on her like a suffocating blanket. A sense of wrongness, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck, sent shivers down her spine. Guided by faded, hand-painted signs, Sarah found the old cemetery. Headstones, weathered and moss-covered, leaned at drunken angles, their inscriptions faded with time. One particular grave, however, stood out. Made of gleaming black marble, its surface was polished smooth. Sarah knelt, brushing away fallen leaves revealing an inscription. Here lies Eliza Thorne, beloved daughter, forever lost. A shiver danced down her spine. The name resonated with a faint memory from her grandmother's stories. Eliza Thorne, the young woman who had vanished from Hollow Creek all those years ago, her disappearance marking the beginning of the village's decline. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the cemetery, whipping through the dead leaves and sending a chill down Sarah's spine. It sounded like whispers, as if voices, filled with a chilling sorrow, echoed through the trees. Sarah spun around, but the sight that met her gaze sent a jolt of terror through her. Across the clearing, a figure stood beneath the skeletal oak. Ethereal and shrouded in mist, it resembled a woman, her long white dress fluttering in the non-existent wind. Her face was obscured by shadows, but a chilling sadness emanated from her. "Eliza," Sarah whispered, her voice barely a squeak. The figure tilted its head, and before Sarah could react, it vanished into thin air. The silence returned, heavier and more oppressive than before. Nausea churned in Sarah's stomach. This wasn't a regular abandoned village. It was something more, something malignant. Panic gnawed at her, but an unhealthy curiosity kept her rooted to the spot. Sarah decided to explore the abandoned houses, hoping to find a clue about the village's fate. Pushing open the creaking door of the general store, she was met with a dusty emptiness. Cobwebs draped from the rafters like ghostly tapestries. On a counter, a single, dusty ledger lay open. Her heart hammered in her chest as Sarah skimmed the faded entries. The last few pages chronicled a sharp decline in business, followed by frantic scribbles about missing livestock and strange noises at night. The final entry sent a cold dread down her spine. Eliza, gone, taken, darkness. Leaving the general store, Sarah's steps faltered. The whispers seemed closer now, swirling around her like angry spirits. A shadow darted past her, flitting across a boarded-up window. The unease that had been simmering within her erupted into full-blown terror. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air. It wasn't a human scream, but something primal, filled with a raw, animalistic fear. It came from the direction of the old church, a looming structure at the far end of the village square. Against her better judgment, Sarah found herself drawn towards the source of the scream. Pushing open the heavy oak doors of the church, she was greeted with a scene straight out of her nightmares. The interior of the once sacred place was desecrated. Pews were overturned. A fallen cross lay amidst scattered hymnals. And in the center of the room, a man lay sprawled on the floor, his eyes wide with terror, his mouth frozen in a silent scream. He was a hiker, Sarah recognized. His backpack lay open beside him. Panic surged through her. She wasn't alone. Someone or something else was in the village with them. Suddenly, the air grew thick and heavy. A cold mist swirled around the fallen man, coalescing into the shape of the woman Sarah had seen earlier. But this time, she was different. Gone was the sadness, replaced by an expression of chilling rage. Her eyes, burning with an unnatural light, fixated on Sarah. "Leave," the apparition hissed, its voice a raspy whisper that echoed in the cavernous hall. "This place is not for you." Sarah, rooted in terror, couldn't move. The apparition glided towards her, its white dress leaving an icy trail in its wake. Its hand, skeletal and translucent, reached out towards Sarah's face. Just then, a guttural roar erupted from the shadows. A hulking figure emerged from behind the altar, its form obscured by the darkness. It lumbered towards the apparition, its eyes glowing with an infernal red light. The apparition turned, a flicker of fear crossing its spectral face. In a flash, a spectral battle erupted. Claws clashed against ethereal tendrils. Unholy screams drowned out Sarah's terrified whimpers. The church trembled, dust raining down from the vaulted ceiling. Sarah stumbled back, knocking over a fallen pew. The crash seemed to momentarily distract the monstrous entity. It turned its fiery gaze towards her, a guttural growl escaping its throat. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah scrambled to her feet and bolted towards the exit. She burst out of the church doors, the screams and roars fading behind her. The night was darker, the silence punctuated only by the frantic pounding of her heart. She sprinted towards her car, the shadows seeming to writhe behind her. Reaching the Subaru, she fumbled with the keys, finally throwing herself into the driver's seat and slamming the door shut. Turning the key in the ignition, the engine sputtered to life. Sarah slammed her foot on the accelerator, throwing the car into reverse and peeling away from the village square. In the rearview mirror, she saw the skeletal oak silhouetted against the moonlit sky, its branches clawing at the heavens. She could almost swear she saw the apparition, a lone figure beneath the tree, its spectral form shimmering with defiance. As Sarah hurtled down the deserted road, the whispers seemed to follow her, weaving through the wind. They spoke of a darkness that had consumed Hollow Creek, of a tragedy that echoed through time. They spoke of Eliza Thorne, lost and forever trapped in a cycle of sorrow and rage. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of Hollow Creek haunted Sarah. The whispers lingered, a chilling reminder of the darkness she had encountered. Driven by an insatiable curiosity and a sense of responsibility for the missing hiker, she delved into local archives and dusty libraries. She unearthed fragmented accounts of Hollow Creek, a once prosperous mining town. But the record spoke of a sudden decline, a series of brutal accidents in the mines, and a mysterious disappearance that sent shockwaves through the community. Eliza Thorne, the daughter of the mine owner, vanished without a trace. A recurring theme emerged: whispers of a strange sickness that plagued the miners, a darkness that seemed to seep from the depths of the earth. The final entry spoke of an exodus, the residents fleeing Hollow Creek, leaving the town to succumb to its malevolent fate. Sarah felt a chilling connection. The monstrous creature she had witnessed, the whispers of darkness. It all pointed to something sinister at play, something that had been unleashed from the depths of the abandoned mines. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Sarah knew she couldn't just leave it be. The missing hiker, the spectral woman, the darkness that consumed Hollow Creek, they all hung heavy on her conscience. She had to try and do something, even if it meant returning to the very place that terrified her. With a heavy heart and a resolute spirit, Sarah packed her car, this time adding research materials on local legends and folklore. She was determined to unravel the secrets of Hollow Creek, to find a way to appease the restless spirit of Eliza Thorne and put an end to the encroaching darkness. The return journey down the forgotten road held a different kind of dread. Sarah wasn't just afraid of the village itself, but of what she might uncover in the depths of the abandoned mines, a place where the whispers of darkness originated. As she approached Hollow Creek, the air grew thick and oppressive. The familiar silence was broken only by the mournful hooting of an owl. The village seemed even more deserted than before, a palpable sense of malevolence hanging heavy in the air. Ignoring the primal fear gnawing at her, Sarah parked her car and steeled herself. This time, she had a purpose: to confront the darkness, to find a way to heal the wounds. Sarah spent days combing through dusty archives and interviewing elderly residents on the outskirts of the abandoned zone. Slowly, a picture emerged. Eliza Thorne, a spirited girl with a love for nature, had clashed with her father over his destructive mining practices. Legend spoke of a hidden cave within the mines, said to be a sacred place for the indigenous people. Eliza, in a desperate act of defiance, had accidentally unleashed a malevolent spirit from the cave during a protest gone wrong. With this knowledge, Sarah pinpointed the location of the cave on a faded map. Armed with offerings of wildflowers, Eliza's favorite, and a symbolic apology for the town's disregard for the land, Sarah ventured into the mines. It was a harrowing journey, the air thick with the suffocating darkness. But fueled by a newfound purpose, she pressed on. Reaching the cave, Sarah found ancient carvings depicting a harmonious relationship between humans and nature. Placing the offerings at the entrance, she spoke aloud, apologizing for the destruction and seeking Eliza's forgiveness. A heavy silence descended, then a soft breeze swept through the cave, carrying the scent of wildflowers. A sense of peace settled over Sarah. She knew Eliza had finally found solace. Leaving the mines, Sarah emerged back into the sunlight. The village still looked desolate, but a weight had lifted. The whispers seemed fainter, replaced by the chirping of birds returning to the once abandoned houses. Hollow Creek wouldn't become a bustling town again, but it would no longer be a vessel for malevolent darkness. Sarah understood that sometimes, healing wounds from the past could bring a form of peace, even to a place marked by tragedy. Horror School. The iron gates of Blackwood Academy loomed over Amelia like a rusted maw. Its peeling paint and chipped gargoyles whispered of a bygone era, a time when knowledge resided not just in textbooks, but in the very stones of the building. Amelia, clutching her acceptance letter, felt a shiver crawl up her spine despite the summer heat. It wasn't the oppressive silence, nor the overgrown ivy that choked the facade. It was a feeling, a prickling unease that settled deep in her gut. Blackwood Academy wasn't Amelia's first choice. It was her only choice. A scholarship for the academically gifted, a chance to escape the stifling mundanity of her small town, had lured her in. Besides, Blackwood held a certain allure, a reputation for nurturing brilliant minds and fostering groundbreaking research. Little did Amelia know, the research at Blackwood wasn't confined to textbooks or laboratories. The first day was a blur of Gothic architecture, creaking floorboards, and hushed whispers from fellow students. There was a palpable tension in the air, an unspoken fear that lurked beneath the surface of academic ambition. Amelia met her roommate, Clara, a pale girl with eyes that held a curious mixture of intelligence and apprehension. Blackwood's courses were as unconventional as its atmosphere. History lessons delved into the forbidden, dissecting forgotten rituals and suppressed myths. Science classes explored the fringes of human understanding, venturing into realms of telekinesis and alchemy. Professor Blackwood, the headmaster with a piercing gaze and an unsettling smile, seemed to relish unsettling their young minds. One particularly stormy night, Amelia stumbled upon a hidden library tucked away in a forgotten corner of the building. The air inside was thick with dust and the scent of ancient paper. Cobwebs draped the shelves, and flickering candles cast grotesque shadows on the walls. As she browsed the dusty tomes, a peculiar book caught her eye. Its leather cover felt cold in her touch, the pages brittle and filled with cryptic symbols and indecipherable text. Intrigued, Amelia took the book back to her dorm room. Clara, ever the skeptic, scoffed at the archaic symbols. Probably some ancient tax code, she muttered, burying herself in a calculus textbook. Yet, a spark of curiosity flickered within Amelia. Days blurred into weeks as she toiled over deciphering the symbols. Slowly, a horrifying truth began to emerge. The book detailed a forbidden ritual, a gateway to a realm beyond the veil of reality, a realm of darkness and unspeakable horrors. The chilling descriptions sent shivers down Amelia's spine. More importantly, the ritual mentioned a specific date, the upcoming full moon. Panic surged through her. This wasn't dusty history. This was a looming threat. Torn between fear and responsibility, Amelia confided in Clara. To her surprise, Clara wasn't as dismissive as she expected. Clara spoke of rumors, whispers of a student who mysteriously disappeared years ago, around a similar full moon. A cold realization dawned on Amelia. Professor Blackwood wasn't just teaching. He was planning something sinister. Determined to stop him, Amelia and Clara embarked on a desperate research spree. Ancient texts, dusty grimoires, anything that offered a clue to counter the ritual became their sole focus. Sleep became a luxury, replaced by frantic page-turning and feverish discussions under the dim light of their dorm room. As the full moon loomed large, whispers intensified. Students began acting strangely. Their eyes glazed over, their movements jerky and unnatural. The school felt charged with an unseen energy, a malevolent force seeping through the ancient walls. The night of the ritual arrived, cloaked in an oppressive darkness. Amelia and Clara, armed with their hastily gathered knowledge, snuck out of their dorm. Following cryptic directions gleaned from the forbidden book, they found themselves in Blackwood's abandoned wing, a place shrouded in darkness and dread. An unsettling chanting echoed across the desolate corridors, pulling them towards a hidden chamber. Pushing open the creaking door, they were met with a sight that froze the blood in their veins. Professor Blackwood, surrounded by students with vacant eyes, stood before a swirling vortex of inky blackness. The air crackled with a dark energy that threatened to consume all existence. Before Amelia and Clara could react, Professor Blackwood turned, his smile wider, devoid of warmth. He recognized them, his eyes glinting with a chilling amusement. "Ah, my inquisitive students," he rasped, his voice distorted by the unseen power he wielded. "Come to witness the dawn of a new era." Amelia, her voice trembling, confronted him. "This isn't knowledge, Professor. It's madness." Professor Blackwood threw his head back and laughed, a sound that echoed through the chamber, devoid of humor, filled only with a chilling madness. "Madness? Knowledge is power, Amelia. And with this power, I shall usher in a new age." He gestured towards the swirling vortex, its tendrils reaching out like grasping claws. Panic clawed at Amelia's throat. She needed a plan, and fast. Desperate, she rummaged through her backpack, the one she'd brought specifically for this night. Inside, nestled amongst her notebooks, was the very book she'd found in the hidden library. It was a gamble, but it was their only hope. Clara, ever the pragmatist, grabbed Amelia's arm. "What are you doing? We need to get out of here." "No," Amelia said, her voice firm despite the terror gnawing at her. "There might be a way to stop this." Professor Blackwood's laughter died down, replaced by a smirk. "A mere student thinks to defy me?" He took a menacing step toward them. Ignoring him, Amelia flipped through the book, frantically searching for the counter-ritual. The symbols swam before her eyes, but adrenaline fueled her, sharpening her focus. Finally, she found it, a series of intricate symbols drawn around the invocation circle, accompanied by a complex chant. Clara, seeing Amelia's resolve, pulled out a piece of charcoal from her backpack, a relic from an abandoned art project. Together, they worked furiously. With trembling hands, Clara traced the symbols onto the dusty floor, mimicking the ones from the book. Professor Blackwood watched, amusement morphing into annoyance. "Foolish girls," he sneered. "You have no idea what you're doing." Amelia, ignoring him again, began chanting. The words were ancient, unfamiliar, but she poured her fear and determination into them. Her voice resonated through the chamber, weaving a counterpoint to the professor's invocation. As they chanted, a struggle for dominance ensued. The air crackled with opposing energies, light battling against encroaching darkness. The vortex pulsed in response, its tendrils whipping around the room, seeking to extinguish the flickering candles that were their only light source. Clara, her face flushed with exertion, continued drawing, sweat trickling down her forehead. Amelia's voice grew hoarse, but she pressed on, fueled by a desperate hope. Suddenly, the vortex lurched. The symbols drawn by Clara glowed with an ethereal light, pushing back against the darkness. The professor stumbled back, a look of shock contorting his features for the first time. His control was faltering. You dare interrupt the great work? He snarled, his voice laced with fear. Emboldened, Amelia pumped her voice into the chant. With a final shriek that echoed through the chamber, she finished the sequence. The effect was instantaneous. The vortex convulsed, tendrils retreating with shrieking whines. The room pulsed with an ethereal light that chased away the encroaching darkness. The students, their vacant expressions replaced with confusion, stumbled back. Professor Blackwood howled in frustration, his eyes wide with despair. The dark energy he'd harnessed crackled around him, unruly and dangerous. It lashed out, a malevolent force seeking an outlet. In that moment, something shifted. The energy, drawn by Professor Blackwood's desperation, turned on him. With a deafening crack, it enveloped him. His scream was cut short as he vanished, consumed by the very power he'd sought to wield. Silence descended, thick and heavy. The room was plunged back into darkness, illuminated only by the flickering candles. Amelia and Clara, weak and trembling, stared at the empty spot where the professor had stood. It was over. The aftermath was a blur. The remaining students, freed from the professor's control, were bewildered and frightened. The school authorities, alerted by the commotion, arrived to find a scene of utter chaos. Amelia and Clara were hailed as heroes, though they felt more like survivors. The forbidden book was confiscated, its secrets locked away once more, but the experience left an indelible mark on them. Blackwood Academy wasn't shut down, but it changed. The curriculum was revised, the focus shifted away from the fringes of knowledge. Professor Blackwood's name became a taboo whispered in hushed tones, a cautionary tale against the pursuit of forbidden power. Years passed. Amelia and Clara, now successful in their chosen fields, remained close. Yet they never forgot the horrors they faced within the walls of Blackwood Academy. They knew that the darkness they had encountered wasn't vanquished, merely contained. One stormy night, Amelia received a cryptic email. It contained a faded photograph of Blackwood Academy, a single window glowing an unnatural emerald green. The caption below read simply, "They haven't forgotten." A coldness washed over Amelia, a knot of dread tightening in her stomach. She knew what this meant. The darkness they thought they'd subdued, the entity Professor Blackwood attempted to summon, was stirring again. And this time it had a target. Clara, sensing Amelia's distress, rushed over. The photo lay on the table, a silent accusation. Clara's breath hitched. "Blackwood?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear and recognition. They didn't need words. They knew what they had to do. Returning to Blackwood felt like stepping back into a nightmare. The familiar oppressive atmosphere now held a tangible malice. The students, oblivious to the unseen danger, seemed to walk in a daze. Following their memory, Amelia and Clara navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the abandoned wing, the air thick with dust and the stench of decay. The room where they had faced Professor Blackwood years ago remained untouched, the remnants of the ritual circle still faintly visible on the floor. This time, however, the room felt different. The air crackled with a malevolent energy, and the source was obvious, the single window depicted in the photograph. As they approached, the emerald glow intensified, swirling tendrils of darkness emanating from within. "There," Clara breathed, pointing at a worn inscription etched above the window. It was a fragment of the counter-ritual, a clue left behind by someone, perhaps a student from Professor Blackwood's failed attempt. Hope flickered within Amelia. Maybe there was still a chance. They searched the room frantically, their eyes scanning the dusty shelves and forgotten corners. Finally, beneath a fallen tapestry, they found it, a hidden compartment containing the missing pieces of the counter-ritual. With renewed purpose, Amelia and Clara set to work. Clara, fueled by a quiet determination, drew the symbols onto the floor, mimicking the inscription above the window. Amelia, her voice hoarse with a mixture of fear and resolve, began chanting the counter-ritual. The room began to vibrate. The emerald glow pulsed and intensified, tendrils of darkness lashing out, seeking to engulf them. Amelia closed her eyes, pouring all her strength into the chant, a desperate plea against the encroaching entity. The struggle was fierce. The darkness, more potent than before, pushed back against their countermeasures. But this time, Amelia wasn't alone. Clara's voice, unwavering and strong, joined her in the chant, a powerful counterpoint that forced the darkness back. As they chanted, a memory surfaced in Amelia's mind, a fleeting glimpse from the forbidden book. Not just the counter-ritual, but a final act, a sacrifice required to banish the entity forever. Tears welled up in her eyes. The sacrifice was a piece of oneself, a cherished memory offered to the void. But with a fierce determination, she focused on the happiest memory she had, a childhood picnic with her family, filled with laughter and warmth. With a final, agonizing scream, she ripped that memory from her grasp, offering it to the darkness. The effect was immediate. The emerald glow shrieked, the tendrils recoiling with a sickening snap. The window shattered, and a chilling wind whipped through the room, sucking out the remaining vestiges of the entity. Silence descended, heavy and oppressive. Exhausted and emotionally drained, Amelia and Clara collapsed onto the dusty floor. They had won, but at a terrible cost. The following days were a blur of news reports and investigations. The source of the unnatural energy remained a mystery, the authorities attributing it to a freak atmospheric anomaly. Blackwood Academy shut down for good, its secrets buried beneath layers of dust and time. Amelia and Clara, forever bound by their shared experience, moved on with their lives. But a part of them remained forever lost, a sacrifice made in the name of stopping a darkness they couldn't fully comprehend. On quiet nights, under the watchful gaze of the stars, Amelia would sometimes feel a pang of loss, a bittersweet echo of the memory she'd surrendered. The darkness, however, wasn't entirely vanquished. In the deepest recesses of the abandoned Blackwood Academy, a single window remained boarded up, a faint emerald shimmer occasionally flickering from within. A chilling reminder that some stories never truly end, and the whispers of the unknown continue to echo in the shadows.